Hello, everybody. This is Keith Caldwell with Our Special Needs Children. I'm here visiting with Ryan Platt to cover the top 10 mistakes parents make when it comes to special needs planning. Hello, Ryan. How are you doing?
Great, Keith. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm doing excellent here in beautiful California. You're in North Carolina.
Yes, very cold recently.
Yeah. 72 degrees for me, minus 6 degrees for you.
Yeah, which is shocking. Shocking.
Exactly. So, right, for those of you that don't know who you are, could you sort of explain who you are, what your company does?
Sure. My name's Ryan Platt, and I founded a company called the Special Needs Plan almost 10 years ago now, and our focus is helping families that have either a child or a loved one with special needs ensure that they've thought through all the different pieces and ensure that they have a plan put together so that their child lives the life they want them to, whether the parents are here or whether they're not here.
Excellent. My name is Keith Caldwell. I'm just a dad. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not an insurance person. I'm not a salesperson. I'm just a dad that's been trying to figure this out for myself anyhow. So that's my story. I called Ryan out of the blue about a year or so ago, and I've been making him do these things to help educate us parents out there. But he's just a wealth of knowledge, and I just love picking his brain. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us once again.
It's always my pleasure, man.
All right, so the format today, everybody, is we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, but we're also going to shoot through a couple of the top mistakes that parents make. So, Ryan, why don't you dig into number 10? Number 10, I'll do a little drum roll if we can.
There you go. It's very official, everybody. Very official. And again, as Keith mentioned, we're going to do kind of 10 things that we find that parents have kind of not thought through, maybe, or are mistakes, and so we're trying to put them in order of most severe. So kind of, so if the 3 or 4 we talk about today you already handled, great. They're supposed to get, I guess the things you really don't want to make a mistake on are going to be 1, 2, and 3, so to speak. And so, one of the ones that I always think about that can be a really hard one for parents to think through and really make that decision when they're thinking about this kind of planning is number 10, which is, they never kind of make the next caregiver official, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of that person that's going to be there for your child or your loved one when you're not here anymore, right? Or when you're not able, right? If we all live long enough, unfortunately, we all get to a point where we need support ourselves, and we can't support somebody else. And so who is going to take over your role as the primary caregiver when you can't anymore? And what I found working with parents is, that can be a very difficult conversation, or maybe not conversation, but difficult decision, because when we think about, well, who can take care of my child as well as I can? As parents, we kind of know the answer,
right?
Which is,
no one.
Right, exactly. And that's, but that's hard though. It's hard to kind of put that kind of through our heart and then into our head and then out of our mouth and really kind of own that, but then make the next best decision. Right. And so 1, we need to make that decision, and then 2, we need to make that official. Meaning, when I say official, the next guardian of your child, you want to put that person, or that person, and then if you have a secondary one or a third one, you're very fortunate to have that many, but if you happen to have that many, you want to put that information in your will, because your will is a legal document that basically does 3 things, right? It tells the court system who's going to administer your wishes, where your stuff goes, and where your people go.
Right.
And so it's that third one about that future caregiver, that future guardian, that you want to make sure you have in your will. And that's kind of as official as you can get it, by putting it in there. And certainly, if you're getting older and getting to a point where, you may not be able to be the primary point person for your child, you may want to think about, having that, going through and maybe getting that guardian into that position before you're gone.
Right.
Right.
Sort of a trial run.
And that's exactly why, Keith. One of the things that I'm going to think about, and this is kind of an overarching thing to the 10 mistakes, and I saw some things written here, some conversation points that we'll touch on that people wanted to have more information on. But one of the things that I've been really diving into is having when I sit down with families, having families and parents understand what I'm starting to call in the moment planning.
Right.
Meaning, how do you do this in the moment of when it's going to happen, right? Do we want to wait for all these things to occur, like the guardian, after we're dead? Or do we want to start, like you said, hey, do we start these trial runs early so I can test these people out?
I think that trial run it makes a lot of sense, because just because you think brother so-and-so should be the guardian, after a while he may realize, or she might realize, that this is not a good fit for me, or it's going to be too much of a burden on my other kids, other siblings, to have to take care of my other brother. So I think that's a really good suggestion to do that. Everyone can see what it would be like if mom or dad or both were no longer there to take care of little Johnny. That's a good suggestion. Right.
And the other piece to that, and we're going to talk about this as time goes along, but a lot of times families they'll think about having kind of, and there's a question in the chat room already, kind of about checks and balances.
Right.
So to have multiple people involved in your child's life, which I think is great. But a lot of times when I'm talking to families, they'll talk about an individual for guardian, right, that primary caregiver, and then they'll talk about an individual called a trustee who may help to manage money. We're going to talk about that in future mistake scenarios, but they'll have different people in those jobs, right? And because they want to check and balance, and there may be a better way to do the check and balance than to have those two different jobs. Because think about that again. This is an in the moment idea for everybody. Is that, let's say the guardian is doing all the day-to-day care for your child, making sure they're okay, where they're going to be. If they're an adult, making sure they're getting here and there, and if they're with a group home, they're there, and just if they're living with them, they're doing these things. And just think about yourself. If you're taking care of your child today, and every time you need to buy them something, you had to call somebody else to get the money to go buy it.
Wow.
Every single time. Think about that for your own self, right? Every time you open up your wallet, there's no money in it.
Right.
And you had to call somebody else to put the money in there when you want to go buy something for them, right? And so I understand why people have done that in the past, and I used to nod my head, yes, oh, that's a good idea, until I started to think about this in the moment idea of planning, right? When I'm thinking, okay, how is this really going to happen on the ground when it really starts to take place? And when you think about it, if you're going to trust one person with the primary caregiving role of your child, what's more important than that, right? The money's not more important than that.
Right.
That's the most important. So if you're going to trust them with that, does it make sense to say, you know what, you also need to make sure that you have access to the money and to be able to do the things that you need to do when you need to do them, not necessarily wait because your brother John is in New Jersey and you live in Arizona, and now you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I tell him I need money, and how does he get it to me, and all these different pieces. There are other ways to put checks and balances in that will hopefully make life easier for those people who will be caring for your child.
Because I would think that if you make brother the guardian and you don't give him the money, or you're concerned about giving the money because he's not a good money manager, then maybe he's not the best person to be the overall person anyhow, right? So that's why you need to look at it. So if you have a concern, if you're going to put the care of your child in the hands of this person, you've got to be able to give everything to that person. If you can't, then that person may not be the right person for that role. It's something to think about.
Yeah, or you can really make sure that you're, and we're going to talk about this tool later, but I know it always comes up in almost everything we do, but you can put things in the special needs trust,
right,
to make sure that there's an overseer to that person.
Okay.
Kind of like an auditor, so that you have that check and balance. So that's something that's going to come up in one of the other mistake segments we're going to do. And then Keith, you made a point before about doing the trial run so that Uncle Tim knows what to do with little Johnny, right? As you said, and that's kind of number 9, right? That communication is absent. Right? That's what we kind of call it is, okay, so now we made the caregiver official, but have we communicated appropriately to everybody in our family about who that is? And then also put together a document, that we call the life journal, that a lot of other people may have heard of as a letter of intent, right? It's kind of our version of that tries to explain what your child's daily life looks like, right? Who's involved? Are they in school now? What's an IEP if they're doing that? What teachers are involved, what school they go to, who's the principal? If they're past the schooling age, what activities do we do a part of? Do we still do therapies? Who are the therapists? Who's the physician? What do we do on Mondays or Tuesdays? Are we in a group home? Do we have supportive employment? Who's our job coach? All those pieces of your child's life, Uncle Tim needs to know. Because all of a sudden, if you're gone, Uncle Tim has no idea, and Johnny might not be able to explain it to him. And so all of a sudden, he's thrown into a world he has no idea about. Johnny can't explain the world, and then everybody's having a massive, massive emotional meltdown.
You know what?
And nobody knows why, right? Johnny doesn't know why, and Uncle Tim's like, "What the heck just happened?"
Right. That's a very, very good point, because most of us, myself included, do not think about the fact that we may not wake up tomorrow, right? And if we don't have a plan today, and it spells out exactly what happens, if you don't wake up tomorrow, then your child is now thrust, assuming you're a single parent, another parent is not around, but assuming you're a single parent, I know there's some single parents on the call today, if you don't wake up tomorrow, what happens, right? If you don't have a journal that communicates all the things that you just delineated there, Ryan, then no one's going to know. They're going to have to recreate it. They're going to have to figure it out themselves on the fly, and that's not what you want to do for your child. I think that's the key that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, because it's just going to, and that's the thing for our children is really what that, and again, all of this is for your child, right? It makes their life easier, but it certainly makes the guardian's life easier too, who's probably somebody you care about as well. Right. And obviously you want it to go as smoothly as possible, which is, again, one of the reasons why we need to, more so than any other type of planning, this type of planning needs to be communicated, because it has to do with somebody's daily life. Right. Not just some faraway, legal pieces and insurances and investments that you can wait on, for 30 or 60 days in other types of planning, right? Well, no, this happens right away, right? If we die as parents, our kids still wake up tomorrow, and whoever's there needs to know what their favorite cereal is, because they might flip out if they don't get the right cereal, right?
Right. They need to know about, yes.
I mean, it's just the way it is.
Right.
And so it happens in this kind of planning. Life happens. Life continues right away in a manner that doesn't necessarily exist in other types of planning.
You know what, Ryan? That's a very, very good point. I have a good friend, and I think I talked about this before, who went to a wedding one day, and at the wedding, she had a brain aneurysm in the middle of the wedding, and her life completely changed. She lived through it, but now she's not able to get life insurance and all the things that someone could normally get. I see we have a question here from Sherry Struggs. Let's go ahead and bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm having trouble finding someone. My sister is older than me, but I have no other children. My sister has no children either. Are there any organizations that provide guardianship services other than the state?
Sherry, great question. And yes, there usually is what they call a corporate guardianship. And there are usually organizations that provide that depending on the state you live in. And so what I would look at is it's usually a nonprofit organization that's going to be statewide. So it could be an affiliate of the ARC that may have some type of program. It could be an affiliate of, an autism society that also may have kind of what they call a corporate guardianship. I know in here in North Carolina they do have the Life Guardian program, which is exactly for that situation, Sherry. It's an organization that's all they do is handle guardianship for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so what I would do is I would start to research in your individual state. I would start with probably the local ARC that you have there and ask them those questions, and then go to your state affiliated ARC as well. Or like I said, Autism Society, things like that. But I would definitely check into that because most states have some, what they call corporate guardianship.
And is there something called a fiduciary or something, a fiduciary guardian or something like that?
Yeah, it's the same
concept.
Right. Yep. It's same type of idea.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
It's usually run by a nonprofit.
Good question, Sherry. We want to take another couple questions from the audience. Anything else out there?
We can go into one more.
Okay.
If you want.
Go ahead.
And this is one that's always interesting to me because it's funny when I do seminars and I mention this, and when I have a range of ages in the seminar group. So I'll have parents of younger kids, and then I'll have parents of adults who the parents are in retirement already. I give this one out, and all the parents who are in retirement are shaking their heads.
Right.
Like this. And the parents who aren't in retirement are going, "Are you kidding me?" So that's what this one is. So if you're already in retirement, you already know this one already. But what it is if your child was deemed disabled before the age of 22, right? Your decision when you take your Social Security retirement benefit will impact their government benefits. So that's the seventh mistake, that parents just don't understand how the government benefit system works, especially their retirement decision.
All right, but you skipped over the 8th.
Well, the 8th one was. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the 8th one. You're right. My fault. My fault. You're right. That was number 8. So parents' Social Security and the impact on their child, right, is number 8. And so what I mean by that is, we have several parents that, and this is a big decision for folks who are starting to think about retirement is, okay, what age do I take my Social Security, right? How do I maximize my Social Security benefit? Do I take it at 62? Do I take it at 66? Do I take it at 70? What does that mean for my retirement? Which is exactly how almost everybody thinks about it.
Right.
What we need to understand, just as another layer in your decision making at that point, is, okay, how does my decision about retirement impact my child's benefits that they have? For example, if they have supplemental security income or SSI and they're getting an income from that, well, in our retirement system, the Retirement and Survivors Benefit System for Social Security, when you decide to take your retirement benefit, if your child, again, was deemed disabled before the age of 22, they're going to receive at least 50% of your retirement benefit. So if your retirement benefit's at 62, and I was just doing this with a family the other day, we were looking at different options. If your retirement benefit is at 62, let's say it's $1,800 a month,
right?
And at 66, it's $2,500 a month, right? Well, at $1,800 a month, you take that, then you cut that in half, your child's going to start receiving $900 a month, which is probably an increase from their SSI payment,
right?
Which it would be. right? But yet that's okay because you're still under the Medicaid monthly income qualification,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's okay. So your child got an increase, you get your Social Security, and everything's still working well. But
Right.
if you wait till 66,
Mm-hmm.
now your benefit's 2,500. Your child gets 50% of it. Well, now all of a sudden we're making too much monthly income, and
Ah.
our Medicaid could get canceled based upon the monthly income, or we have to pay a Medicaid deductible to
Mm-hmm.
keep the Medicaid benefits. So again, that's one area that we just want to understand as you start planning, depending on where you are in life,
Mm-hmm.
that your decision about your retirement benefits will have a lifelong impact on your child. And we just need to understand what that impact is so that you make the best decision that lasts for 2 lifetimes, which is, again,
Sure.
always the unique part about this planning, right?
Right. Right.
Every other planning, you're pretty much, you know what, okay, I'm concerned about my lifetime, that's good. Every decision
Right.
every family makes with this planning, it's always about, okay, how does it impact 2 lifetimes,
Right.
right? And I don't just mean 2 lives. I mean 2 lifetimes, multiple people's lives, right?
Right.
But definitely over two lifetimes. And so that's the unique part about this planning, that every decision we make, we need to ask that question as you're
Interesting.
making that decision.
So you're saying not only do you need to understand how your child can qualify for some of the government benefits that are available for them, you need to be concerned about how your retirement planning and all that works out. So that's something you would help people with, I'm sure, walk them through that whole
Mhm.
piece. And I think,
Absolutely.
that it's become one of my sort of pet peeves lately. And I hear other parents talking about, that they got a financial plan done by, Joe and Josie, a friend of the family who dabbles in this, does estate planning, but does this, and they don't really specialize in this because it's so important that we get it right, right? It's so important that we get it right when we're dealing with not only ourselves but our kids, our special needs kids, right? So it makes a lot of sense to talk to someone who specializes in this area, not someone who dabbles in this area, because when you find out that it was wrong, it's too late. You're no longer here, and it was done wrong, and now your son or daughter no longer qualifies for some of the benefits that they once or could have qualified for, and the life that they're living is not the one that you'd want them to have. So whether you talk with Ryan or someone else, make sure that they're qualified. And know on your website, Ryan, you have a list of questions to ask people. To see if they really know what they're talking about, obviously.
Yep.
So we'll make sure we add that link on this here for people to look at. But ask these questions because your child really, really needs that professionalism, right?
Right. Right. And like you said, Keith, and that's true. They should definitely understand that. And then the other piece of that is if they do specialize in the area, then they're going to also stay on top of things that are coming out,
Right.
right? So especially on the governmental level. So there are certainly things right now that some people may have heard of going on, but Congress is considering changing one of the rules of how the Social Security systems interact with one another, right? That
Right.
the retirement and survivors benefit system, and then what's called the Social Security disability income system. Well, those systems are under Social Security, but they're separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the past, they've been able to share money so that
Right.
neither one of them runs out.
Right.
Well, Congress is considering changing that rule, which in essence would cause people that have Social Security disability income payments
Right.
in 2016 to basically get their benefits reduced by 19%.
Wow.
Right? And so it's those kind of things that, if you're working with somebody who specializes in it, they're probably staying on top of that stuff.
Right.
So if that kind of thing, if that kind of governmental change would impact you, unless you are really good at staying on top of it all and working and taking care of your family and everything else, but if you have somebody there that knows your family, that knows your intent, that knows your plan, and also stays on top of that, then they'll know if that'll impact you or not.
Right.
And then you can make adjustments, the best way you can.
Wow, that just sort of scared me straight, Ryan, because you're right. I
Yeah.
mean, you can have a static plan that is done and makes sense right now, but if you don't monitor it and update it and because you never know when you're not going to be here. I mean, most people don't know, hey, I'm going to die tomorrow. You just are gone 1 second.
Right.
And having a plan that can evolve and can modify and move with the world that includes all that kind of stuff is what we were talking about here, right?
Right. Yeah, and that was funny. I had a family last night that I was talking to on the phone, and we were determining if it would be good for us to work together and how that would function. And the mom asked a great question. She said, Ryan, after we get this plan done, is that it, or are you going to be here to help us? and that's exactly was kind of her thought was, oh my gosh, I don't want to just have this plan done and then
sit on the shelf,
right, and just do it on my own. And so that's one thing that I told her. I said, no, I mean our we feel our job is always to make sure that we have a lifelong relationship, whatever that means in all of our lives. None of us really know, but so that it's not static, right? So that it does get adjusted as things change, right? On a household level or on a macroeconomic level with governments changing what they're doing and tax laws and government benefits and those kind of things.
I see a lot of comments up there. I don't see a lot of questions. And for those who are not answering your specific questions regarding your particular circumstances, because it's really something you should talk to Ryan personally about. He can't make a determination if your plan is satisfactory or not on just an email. We don't want to do the discourtesy of not doing it properly. So we're going to put on here how you access Ryan and ask specific questions about your circumstance, so he gives you specific answers to your questions with all the information that he needs to. So we'll make sure we post that there for you as well. But we want to see if there's any questions from anybody out there. We try to keep these shows about 30 minutes, which is about where we're at right now, so that it's not too long, right? And Ryan doesn't get tired of listening to me talk, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly, right? Right, more the other way, Keith.
All right. So if anybody has any specific questions that aren't particular, but just in general questions about some of the top 3 are these ones we talked about, which is how to make it an official guardian, is to put them in the will. We talked about that. We talked about a communication plan, and that's something you can do right now. You can start drafting up your letter of intent. Talk about what's important to little Johnny, what's important to him, what are all these caregivers. Just start listing them out. That's what this document is. You don't need to hire an attorney to do that. You're just taking out what you have in your head and putting it into writing, because one day you may not be able to say that to someone, so you need to put it in writing. All the things that are important to him. I know for my son, he likes to sit behind the driver's seat. He doesn't like to sit on the other side. And if you make him take off his shoes to go outside to play basketball, he's going to be mad about that. So these little quirks I know about, other people would not know about. So that's what we're talking about. That's something you can do actionable today. You can create and start working on your letter of intent, and every once in a while you can update it. And the number 8 one was what again, Ryan?
Was the Social Security decision of parents.
Right.
And impacting their child. So kind of a really focused one.
All right, I see we have a question here. I can't read that. Where is it? Okay. I just want to, well, it's not a question. We just want to thank you. Well, that is a question. Where is it? Sorry for that, everybody. Oh, with regards to number 8 and SSI, if there is a signed Medicaid waiver on file with the ARC, will our retirement SSI still impact our child's Medicaid qualification? Ryan, you want to tackle that one?
It really doesn't have anything to do with a Medicaid waiver or the Medicaid system at all. It purely has to do with the retirement and survivor system, right. Which is a different part of Social Security than the SSI system. So whenever you make your retirement decision, they're going to automatically look to see if you have a beneficiary that was disabled before the age of 22. So the income still could change.
Okay.
Because they're not going to cross systems. They're just going to look at that one piece.
Here's a good question from Sherry Shrugs again. how do we positively convey this importance to an uninvolved, non-custodial parent?
Sherry, I guess one question that I would have is, non-custodial, does that mean that they gave up their parental rights, so that if something happens to Sherry, that they don't have any rights anymore to step in as the next person to handle their child's needs?
Well, in case she doesn't respond, I think it's that she might be a single person, and
Right.
her ex is not involved, and she's the planner in the situation.
Right.
How do you convey the importance of all this planning? Because all of what she's doing could be for naught if he does something that leaves too much money for her child, that disqualifies her, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
Let's assume that's what she means.
Right, right, and that probably is when you say non-custodial. He's probably, she probably is
and uninvolved too.
Right, primary custody, which is dangerous if he still has parental rights, right? Because if Sherry goes, the courts like individuals to be with their parents, whether they're good or not. Doesn't really matter.
Right.
He's just not involved. Okay, thanks, Sherry. I think it's one of the pieces that we also, as part of that communication planning, is kind of what we kind of call a family care notice, which could be sent to a non-involved parent too, that just kind of outlines why was this planning important, what are those specific dollar amounts that can cause somebody to be ineligible for government benefits. Why are government benefits important? What are they providing, or what do you expect them to provide for your child? What does that mean in terms of dollars and resources that those benefits provide, that if this isn't done right, then the family has to provide it, right? Or some way or somehow. So kind of what we always do is just lay out, hey, if this isn't done right, here's the impact to our child, who hopefully even though you're not involved, hopefully you have, some type of caring notion about. And I think it's just that, and then a lot of prayers. I mean, as awful as that is, but you can't force somebody to do something.
No, I agree. That's unfortunate.
You can give them as much education as possible and kind of give them, what I always say is, give them the negative ramifications of if it's not done right. And maybe that will spur them to be like, hey, you know what? I don't want my child to be destitute.
Right.
I want them to be okay, even if I'm not involved. I don't want to hurt them.
Right. Right. I think that's a very good point. I was asked, Ryan, what states do you work in? Do you work in all 50 states, or do you just work in North Carolina?
We do. We work in all 50 states.
Okay. So if people have a question, they can ask you. And you don't do special needs trust. You're not an attorney, but you have people that you work with who can help with that, right?
Right.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
I have. Oh, let's see. Lee Warner says, "Are these 8 mistakes? Well, there's going to be 10 done anywhere in list form to pass on to others." Well, not really in the list form. Or do you have something listed, Ryan?
Well, what we do is we do have, and we're coming out with our next version. It should be done here shortly. Is a guide booklet that is free for folks that looks at kind of 10 mistakes, but also and we've added a couple here as for this show that are going to be a little bit unique to the guidebook. But then also goes over some of those misconceptions. It goes over how to interview professionals to make sure they know what they're doing. So it's really kind of a condensed version of, hey, this is what not to do. This is kind of misconceptions of special needs planning, and then how do I interview professionals? And there's a little bit about the ABLE Act in there,
right?
With this new version for 2015. So it's a good overview. So to answer your question shortly is yes.
Sort of.
There is some more material to read about it. Yes.
Right. And we'll also put a link to our last show of the ABLE Act too, for those of you that missed it. We're going to sort of wrap the show up today because we want to keep that our timeline. But I just want to just let you guys know about our March 6th show. We're going to be moving on with the next mistakes that parents make, so we're covering those. And if you found this at all helpful, I would ask you to consider making a donation to our special needs children. This is all being done volunteer by me, and it takes a lot of work, and I pay things. So if you guys are at all interested in helping out, we're going to put a link on here that you can make a donation to help out with some of the costs there. Ryan, do you have any last parting shots that you'd like to say, or anything you'd like to give for, or any things you want to sneak peek into the future?
Yeah, I mean, what I would want to say is that, you know, this is a true service that Keith has organized, and I know a lot of families have gotten quite a good information from it. And so what I would say is definitely if you can support him financially, great. If you can't, then support him by sending this information out to all the families that you know, all the organizations that you're a part of. Because those organizations want to know, because they want to get good information to their people too, and then this information and this movement that Keith is building can gather more people, because every family needs this information. So if you can't do it, if you can't support financially, understood, but certainly we all know other families that could use this information. So please send this link out to your whole email list, put it on your Facebook page, send it to the organizations that you're a part of in your local area, so that other people who don't know about it yet can have the same opportunity as you do to get good quality information.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan, for the plug. I appreciate that. Well, I just want to let everybody know, thank you guys for all joining us today. And as always, I learned a ton of information from you, Ryan. So you're just a wealth of information for me, and I know that you're helping bless other families too. So that is really appreciated. So with that, we're going to say goodbye. For those that are watching, you could stay into the room here and still comment. We'll send you a link to this show and a link to some of the previous shows, so you'll have it. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you all. Have a great day.